Ed O'Neill just ended decades of silence about married, with children, and what he revealed flips the show's history on its head. For 11 seasons, Al Bundy became one of TV's most indelible characters. But behind the laughs were casting disasters, bitter feuds, and off-camera secrets that never made the tabloids. Ed has finally unpacked the uncomfortable truths most viewers never clocked. The real reason 2 cast members were fired after the pilot, the scene he flat-out refused to film, why he and Amanda Bearse didn't speak for years, and the one thing about playing Al Bundy he still regrets today. This isn't fluff. These are candid revelations straight from Ed, owning mistakes, exposing tensions, and explaining why a show like Married with Children wouldn't survive today's TV landscape. If you grew up with the Bundys or discovered them on streaming, what follows will reframe how you see Al, the cast dynamics, and the legacy of one of television's most controversial sitcoms. When Ed O'Neill walked into that audition room in 1986, he wasn't the favorite. Fox had other names in mind, bigger, safer bets for a series already pushing the envelope. Then Ed did something simple and devastating. He slumped into a chair, sighed like a man beaten by life, and somehow kept going. That defeated gesture, borrowed from relatives he'd watched, instantly convinced creators, Michael Moy and Ron Leavitt, that Al Bundy had arrived. Most fans don't know how close Ed came to losing the role anyway. Even after that room-stopping read, network execs worried he was too unknown, too risky for a scrappy new network trying to compete with ABC, CBS, and NBC. Fox was still finding its identity, and backing an unproven lead felt dangerous. Weeks passed without a callback. Ed figured he'd blown it. Moy and Leavitt fought hard. They argued Ed's mix of weary defiance and dark humor was irreplaceable. When Fox finally greenlit the casting, Ed was in, along with the pressure of carrying an entire show's concept on his shoulders. If it failed, so might his career. That weight shaped his approach from day one. He studied scripts obsessively, layered in his own touches, and ensured every sigh, every side-eye, every sarcastic jab felt real. Unlike sitcom dads who winked through punchlines, Ed played Al straight, like a man genuinely trapped in a life he didn't choose. That's why audiences believed in Al Bundy, even when they kinda hated him. But that intensity also created friction with castmates, with writers, with the grind of a live audience. And that strain would mark the show's entire run. Most people assume the pilot introduced the family we know. Not true. Kelly and Bud Bundy were originally played by Tina Caspary and Hunter Carson, and after filming wrapped, Fox made a brutal call. They fired both. Ed recently described how awkward it was. Even during the pilot shoot, something felt off in the family dynamic. Tina Caspary's Kelly didn't have the exact energy the creators wanted. Someone who could be hilariously dim without becoming a cartoon, flirtatious, yet oddly innocent. Enter Christina Applegate, only 15, who in a second audition nailed it from her very first line. The room knew Hunter Carson's Bud faced a similar issue. The kid had to be both pathetic and swaggering, a legend in his own mind who never stopped striking out. David Faustino, just 12, brought the snap and timing that sold Bud's delusional confidence. Ed admitted working with David clicked immediately. Here's the shocker Ed revealed. The switch wasn't only about talent. It was chemistry, specifically with him. Executives told the creators if Ed was going to carry the show as Al, the family around him had to feel believable with him at the center. Tina and Hunter didn't fit that dynamic. Fox wouldn't compromise. Ed felt guilty. 2 actors had filmed a pilot and thought they had steady jobs. But once Christina and David joined, the Bundys finally felt like a real dysfunctional unit. That authenticity became the foundation for everything that followed. Performing for a live studio audience sounds electric until you're doing it weekly for 11 straight years. Ed opened up about the relentless pressure of playing to 300 to 500 people per episode. There were no safety nets. Every gag had to land in real time. When a joke killed, the room was a rocket. When it died, the silence was brutal. Some nights, Ed could feel the audience drifting, and the cast had to improvise or redline the energy to reel them back. That demand wrecked the schedule. If a laugh ran long, timing got smashed. If a line didn't hit, they'd reset and try different deliveries. Some episodes jumped to twice their normal length chasing the right reaction, and everyone left exhausted. Physical comedy was the real tax. Ed did pratfalls, fake brawls, and shoe store slapstick that looked effortless and left real bruises. By season 5, his back genuinely hurt. He pushed through for the laugh. The live crowd also made things uncomfortable. Some bits flirted with lines, and you could feel the room tense. Other times, audiences laughed in the wrong places, and the cast had to pivot mid-scene. Katie Seagal later said certain Peg moments felt more exposed with hundreds watching. Still, Ed insists the live audience was the magic in the bottle. Immediacy you can't fake. Would he do it again the same way? He says he's not sure his body could. For decades, fans whispered about tension between Ed and Amanda Bearse, Marcy Rhodes. Ed finally confirmed it. They had a serious falling out that lasted years, and it started with something that seemed small but cut deep. In 1989, TV Guide ran a special cover with the Married with Children cast, or rather, only Ed and Katie Sagal. Amanda Bearse and David Garrison, Steve Rhodes, were left off entirely. Ed knew beforehand and didn't object. He figured, lead and co-lead, that's TV. Amanda was furious. She felt erased. Ed now says he should have spoken up for Amanda and David. His silence made a bad decision worse. Things soured further in 1993 when Amanda married and didn't invite Ed. She later said it was difficult, but their strain made his presence complicated. Ed took it personally, angry, hurt, and convinced the line between professional and personal had been drawn in public. For years, they barely spoke off camera. Scenes together carried a quiet tension everyone felt. Katie tried to mediate. Christina Applegate felt caught in the middle. Ed admits he handled it badly. That ego and obliviousness kept him from seeing how sidelined Amanda felt. In 2025, Amanda told fans time had softened things, but she still wished Ed had defended the full ensemble back then. Ed says he'd apologize if they sat down today. Whether they have is unclear. What's clear, the rift shaped the show's atmosphere more than fans ever realized. Ed is famous for commitment, but he had lines he wouldn't cross. He finally revealed there was an episode where he pushed back hard. He didn't name it, but he said the scene made Al look genuinely cruel, not just pathetically funny. The writers wanted to push boundaries, that was the show, but Ed argued that turning Al malicious would break the character. Al's a loser, not a villain. We laugh because his life steamrolls him, not because he's heartless. Writers resisted. Ed stood firm. If they forced it, he said, the audience would turn on Al. After tense talks, they reworked the scene, still edgy, but without breaking the character's core. It wasn't the only clash, but it was the big one. By season 8 or 9, he also pushed back when jokes felt like retreads, hunting for fresher ways to play old beats without phoning it in. The bigger reveal? Ed had far more influence over Al than fans realized. He shaped mannerisms, twisted line readings, and ad-libbed moments that became iconic. The writers trusted him because he was the character's compass, and he guarded that pathetic but sympathetic balance like a hawk. Terry Ricolta's 1989 boycott is TV legend. Advertisers pulled out. Episodes got yanked. Headlines screamed. Ed says the inside story was even rougher. Fear, confusion, and a real threat the show might die. When giants like Coca-Cola and Procter & Gamble bailed, Fox panicked. As a young network, they couldn't afford that kind of hit. Meetings turned urgent. Tone it down. Cut jokes? Rework the show? The cast was muzzled. Ed's instinct to defend the satire was overruled by don't inflame it. Katie Seagal later called that stretch terrifying. What if the controversy ended their careers? Christina Applegate, just 17, took heavy flack for playing Kelly. Ed says watching adults attack a kid made him furious. Here's what fans never saw. The boycott changed the writing. They didn't soften the humor. They got smarter. More wordplay, more innuendo, more physical comedy that slipped past censors while still detonating in the room. Ironically, the campaign backfired spectacularly. Before Ricolta, the show was a modest hit. After, ratings exploded. People tuned in to see what the fuss was about. Ed calls it the best marketing Fox never had to buy. Still, scars remained. Some sponsors never returned, and some episodes were trimmed or buried. Ed's takeaway: try to please everyone and you'll kill what makes you special. One of the hardest moments happened off-screen. In 1991, Katie Sagal was pregnant, and the writers folded it into the show. Then, in her 7th month, she lost the baby. Everything changed overnight. Ed says the grief hit everyone, but he failed Katie in one important way. He didn't know what to say, didn't want to say the wrong thing, so he said very little. He kept it professional when she needed personal. He now calls that a mistake he still regrets. Writers scrapped the pregnancy arc and replaced the baby episode with a dream sequence in which Al imagined the whole thing. Filming it was surreal. Everyone knew why, but no one talked. Katie later called it the hardest time of her life. Hearing that years after the fact made Ed feel guilty. The tragedy shifted the set's chemistry. Lines got drawn around what the show would joke about, and the cast prioritized protecting each other. Ed's lesson: success doesn't erase real life or pain. He's asked constantly whether the show could work now. Ed's answer is blunt: absolutely not. Not out of bitterness, out of realism. He cites cancel culture first. The sexual innuendo, the gender jokes, the willful political incorrectness would be sliced up online within hours. Advertisers would bolt, and the season wouldn't finish. Networks are far more risk-averse than Fox was in 1987. Even edgy streamers fear boycotts and churn. He also points to shifting audience expectations. In the late 80s and 90s, viewers recognized satire. Al wasn't a role model. He was a clown suit for working-class frustration. Today, Ed says, satire gets mistaken for endorsement. A sexist Al line would be read as the show promoting sexism, even if the target is Al's ignorance. Plus, the premise, the dead-end shoe salesman, the exasperated marriage, the ungrateful kids, came from a cultural moment that no longer exists. Trying to redo it now would feel stale, if not tone-deaf. And that's okay. The show did its job in its time and influenced what came next. One revelation fans didn't expect: playing Jay Pritchett on Moderns. Family completely changed how Ed sees Al. After more than a decade away from the family sitcom lane, he returned in 2009 as a confident, successful, loving patriarch, the anti-Al. The contrast was freeing. Jay was gruff and old school, but actually cared. He showed warmth, apologized, grew. After 11 years of a character who hugged with insults, Ed loved getting to play genuine emotion. For years after Married, he struggled with being seen only as Al. The role was iconic and limiting. Modern Family cracked the typecast, earned him new respect, and reminded him and Hollywood he had range. Younger colleagues asked about Al with fresh eyes. Some saw a tragic figure, others a relic of a different comedic moment. Ed realized Al meant different things to different generations. That complexity? He hadn't fully appreciated it while in the grind. There's bittersweet irony here. The role that made him famous also boxed him in. It took another smash sitcom to let him out. Ed's closing thoughts are candid. First, Married with Children was satire, not a how-to manual for family life. If you admired Al, you missed the joke. Second, his biggest regret is how the show's notoriety sometimes overshadowed the ensemble's craft. Katie Sagal, Christina Applegate, David Faustino, what they did deserved more recognition, he says. The show's controversy kept awards bodies at arm's length, and he wishes his co-stars had reaped more of the benefits. He's also stunned the Bundys keep finding new fans. He assumed the show would fade after 1997. Instead, streaming introduced it to viewers who weren't alive during its original run. Teenagers and 20-somethings in 2025 watch a late 80s, 90s sitcom and still laugh, even if they don't share the cultural context. He's equally surprised by how deeply the series influenced modern comedy. Shows like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, Family Guy, and South Park that push boundaries and lean on satire, the Bundys helped normalize. And the most revealing admission? For years, he resented Al for limiting his career and defining him. Time changed that. Al Bundy gave him what most actors never get: A role that became iconic, that people still quote decades later, that left a permanent thumbprint on TV history. He's made peace with that, and he's grateful, even if it took a long time to get there. Ed O'Neill's revelations peel back the reality behind one of TV's most divisive comedies, from pilot episode recasting to the Amanda Bearse rift, from a real-life tragedy to a principled line he refused to cross, to a clear-eyed view of why the Bundys wouldn't make it to air today. These aren't PR sound bites. They're raw reflections from the man who lived the chaos, carried the weight, and walked away with both pride and regret. The Bundys' legacy is messy, like the family itself, but that complexity is why the show still matters. It broke sitcom rules, gave voice to a certain kind of frustration, and proved that even a crude clown in a brown suit can say something honest about the times. Decades later, Married, with children, still sparks debate and still reveals new layers, especially when the guy in the no ma'am shirt finally tells the whole story.